Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Representatives Baum, Camper, Freeman, Gant,
Here.
Hawk, Hazelwood, Lynn, Ogles, Todd, Whitson, Williams, Wendell, Chairman Hicks.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I would like to call the Finance, Ways, Means Subcommittee to order for April 6, 2022. Members, are there any announcements or personal orders before we begin? All right, seeing none, we have a total of 60 bills on our calendar today, so I know some members are over in other committees, and so they may be coming in and out, so we will try to get to accommodate as much as we can. But we will have to roll a couple of these until we see the members come in. All right, we will begin with item number 1 on our calendar. It's going to be House Bill 2097 by Leader Lamberth, and I think he is one of those that will be here in just a little bit. So without objection, we'll roll this to the Hill. Okay, that brings us to item number 2 on our calendar, again by Leader Lamberth, House Bill 2118. Without objection, roll to the Hill. That brings us to item number 3, House Bill 606 by Leader Lamberth. Without objection, we'll roll this one to the Hill. Brings us to item number 4, House Bill 2096 by Leader Lamberth. Without objection, we'll roll this one to the Hill. That brings us to item number 5. Item number 5 is House Bill 1852 by Chairman Boyd. This was previously considered and placed behind the budget. It has now been funded in the administration amendment, and we can actually move this out to full finance. So any objection to reconsidering our action on House Bill 1852? Seeing none, we are on House Bill 1852. It is properly back before us. So I will entertain a motion. You have a motion and a second. You are recognized, Chairman Boyd, on House Bill 1852.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Committee. House Bill 1852 is the bill that I described a couple of weeks ago that would provide a mechanism for which veterans of the armed forces that have served in certain periods of armed conflict can buy up to 4 years into the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System. It would apply to state employees, and it would be permissive for local governments to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Chairman Boyd. Members, you've heard the description of House Bill 1852. Any discussion? Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Boyd, for this bill. I know you worked on this idea for several years. Much like you in my district, I've had many law enforcement individuals from my community, both the sheriff and the Cookeville Police Department, who's began their service to our state and our nation in the military, and this gives us a way to honor them the same way which we did veterans. I know it's not Vietnam veterans and before, and so I know you've worked diligently on this, but I just want to say that I support your bill. I'm very thankful we were able to get it out from behind the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Williams. Chairman Boyd, any comments?
Thank you for that endorsement of the bill, Chairman Williams.
Further discussion? Seeing none, we're now voting on House Bill 1852, moving on to full finance. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1852 moves to full finance.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
That brings us to item number 6. Item number 6 on our calendar is House Bill 2500 by Chairman Boyd, and I have a request to roll this 1 week. So without objection, House Bill 2500 rolled 1 week.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Committee.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item number 7 on our calendar. It's going to be House Bill 1696 by Chairman Curcio. We have a motion to second. Sir, you're recognized for a brief description.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Committee. This bill enhances the penalty for the offense of aggravated burglary from a Class C felony to a Class B felony if the burglary is of an occupied habitation. It also increases the penalty for especially aggravated burglary from a Class B felony to Class A felony if the burglary is of a habitation. So trying to draw the distinction here between breaking into somebody's house when you know they're there, their cars are out in front, it's nighttime, probably asleep. That's a much more violent act than, not that we condone anybody burglarizing anybody's home, but if you know no one's there, you're trying to get in, get out quickly. One thing my dad always told me, if they come in while you're home, be prepared to shoot back because they're coming to hurt you.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Curcio. Members, you've heard the description. Any discussion? Representative Ogles.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Curcio, did this in any way affect, we messed with this statute last year where we changed it from a property crime to a personal crime. Did that stay intact, or was there any changes with that?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great question. No, this is just going to draw a distinction between occupied and unoccupied and enhance both of them.
Representative Ogles?
So will unoccupied be a crime against person or a crime against property? So did we differentiate there?
You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's no change to the law. So if it's a person crime now, it would remain a person crime.
Representative Ogles?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Good legislation.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, House Bill 1696 does have a cost associated with it, so we will have to place it behind the budget and reconsider it at a later date. So without objection, House Bill 1696 will go behind the budget.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. All right, that brings us to item number 8, and I think Chairman Doggett is in another committee, so without objection, we will roll House Bill 2571 to the Hill. Brings us to item number 9, House Bill 2572, also by Chairman Doggett, and without objection, we're going to roll this to the Hill. Brings us to item number 10, House Bill 905 by Chairman Doggett. Without objection, we'll roll this to the Hill. Yeah, we're going to be at the Hill before too long. All right, that brings us to item number 11. Item number 11 is going to be House Bill 2436 by Chairman Farmer, and he may be in committee as well. I think he is, so without objection, we'll roll House Bill 2436 to the Hill. Brings us to Chairman Halford, item number 12. That's going to be House Bill 1018. Item number 12, House Bill 1018, was previously considered and placed behind the budget. It has now been funded by the administration amendment and can be moved out of full finance. So without objection, we are reconsidering our action to House Bill 1018. So with any objection, seeing none, House Bill 1018 is back before us. Now we're on item number 12, House Bill 1018. You have a motion and a second. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1018 was previously heard and passed in 2019, and at the time there were a couple items left out of the bill that need to be included in that bill. Those would be the 4-year background check and the renewal fee that were left out in 2019. It was heard again in 2020, passed the House, didn't pass the Senate, so here we are again in 2022 trying to get these two items back on this bill where it's in the proper posture.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Halford. Members, you've heard the description. Any discussion on House Bill 1018? Chairman Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Halford, I guess I wanted to ask a couple of questions about the fiscal note on this. So it looks like the amended fiscal note, this is going to make about $1.3 million for the department, yet they're only going to be spending about $96,000. I'm understanding that $96,000 is really only up to update their computer equipment to accommodate this, kind of a one-time cost. Yet they're going to see this recurring, it looks like, revenue over a period of time that will further enhance their almost $26 million reserve in the handgun reserve fund. So I guess I'm questioning why we need to charge our citizens this much money for something that's really already being paid for other than the initial computer cost. Do you know anything about that, sir?
You know, Mr. Chairman, I can't answer that question. My only exposure to this bill has been simply what I have stated here today. So I'm just picking up I inherited this from another member, so I'm not familiar with the total workings of the bill. So I suppose my answer would be that I don't know the answer to that question, sir.
Chairman Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to work with you, if this makes it out of this committee today before it gets to full finance, to possibly amend it and lower the cost for our citizens, because I have felt for some time they're probably being overcharged for this type of service by the department, considering that their reserve fund just keeps growing. So I think that's pretty clear evidence that they're being overcharged. So I'd like to work with you to maybe change the dollar figure on that.
I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you. Leader Gant, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. Chairman Halford, I'm not sure if this is your last bill in this committee, but I know it's got to be getting pretty close. And I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for your service to West Tennessee and to the state of Tennessee. And you have truly been what I call a true statesman for this state. And a lot of us look up to you, and I want to sit here and publicly thank you for the example that you have set. And we're going to truly miss you.
Well, I thank you for that. It's been an honor and a privilege to appear before this committee as well as other committees that I've appeared before in the 14 years that I've been here. So I appreciate that very much. And yes, this probably is my last bill before Finance, Ways, and Means Subcommittee. So I thank you all for allowing me to stand here in this place today. So thank you very much for that.
All right, members, further discussion on House Bill 1018. Seeing none, we're now voting on House Bill 1018, moving on to full finance. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1018 moves to full finance.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you,
members.
Chairman. All right, let's back up, members, to item number 11. It's going to be House Bill 2436 by Chairman Farmer.
Yeah.
You have a motion to second. You are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. Members, I just want to let you all know what this bill does. This allows students who finish high school early, say they finish in their junior year, to go ahead and take advantage of the promised scholarship dollars so they can go on to college. Right now, there's not a mechanism to do that. And it does have a fiscal note. It's got about a $1.2 million increase of state expenditures. That should come from the Tennessee Promise Reserve account. But you know what that tells us? It tells us this. Based on the way it's calculated, we've got 1,173 kids that may not move on and go to college because of this issue here. So I'm hoping it's going to get funded. I know I'm probably going to go behind the budget here just in a minute, but I want to let you all know what this does, and I'd appreciate whatever you can do for me.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Members, you've heard the description of House Bill 2436. Any discussion? Seeing none, as the chairman has already alluded to, there is a cost associated with House Bill 2436. So without objection, House Bill 2436 will go behind the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, let's go back. Let's go back to item number 1. I saw Leader Lamberth walked in, and he looked prepared when he walked in. I'll say that. That's all right, members, we're back on item number 1. It's going to be House Bill 2097 by Leader Lamberth. We have a motion and a second. Sir, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I know that this has an other fiscal impact, so I anticipate it would go behind the budget, but this creates the new RICO statute in Tennessee to go after organized crime.
All right, thank you, Leader. Members, you've heard the description. Any discussion? Seeing none, as the Leader has already alluded to, it does have a cost associated with it, so we will have to place it behind the budget and consider it at another date. So without objection, House Bill 2097 goes behind the budget. All right, that brings us to item number 2. Item number 2 on our calendar is House Bill 2118 by Leader Lamberth. You have a motion to second. You recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know this one also has other fiscal impact, but this really clarifies 2 issues that we passed last year that need to be fixed, and I do hope deeply that this will come out from behind the budget later. It deals with misdemeanor probation violations and a probation violation dealing with a no contact order violation. We passed a bill last year, and I don't think it was anybody's intent to say if a judge tells someone you cannot have any contact whatsoever with a victim of crime. Representative Friedman and I just came from a committee meeting dealing with trying to protect victims of crime. Right now, it's not a probation violation to have contact with a victim of crime unless you've got an order of protection. This fixes that and makes it clear that it is. But again, Mr. Chairman, I understand it has other fiscal impact.
All right, thank you, Leader. Members, you've heard the description of House Bill 2118. Any discussion? Seeing none, as the Leader has already alluded to, there is a cost associated with it. We will have to place it behind the budget and consider it at a later date. So without objection, House Bill 2118 goes behind the budget. Brings us to item number 3 on our calendar, also by Leader Lamberth. It's going to be House Bill 606. Sir, you have a motion to second. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe there is an amendment that was filed with the committee to update the effective date, or there should have been.
We have no amendment, sir.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I know this would go behind the budget anyways, but this would hopefully, if it were to come out from behind the budget, have an update for the effective date. This is an issue I've been working on the entire time I've been down here, and this is for vehicular homicide to be 100% sentence. It's embarrassing that someone can get out there and kill one of our citizens and get a 10-year sentence and get out, or at least be up for parole, many times get out in a year and a half. 2.5 years, 3 years. It's heartbreaking to see families go through this. There is another bill that is out there that is sponsored by both speakers that does include this bill. I just want to make sure this is still alive for conversation, and it doesn't matter to me which bill it passes in. It doesn't matter to the victims and their families of violent crime of which bill this is passed in. But I hope and pray that this committee will consider funding this year. I've brought it just about every other year since I've been down here. It is something very, very, very important. So again, I know for today's purposes it goes behind the budget, but I really hope we pass a bill, any bill, that will include this in there. And I want to give a shout out to Norris Skelly with Brothers Against Drunk Driving. He has been a passionate advocate for this issue, and many of y'all probably received an email from him about this bill. You ought to meet Norris sometime and listen to his story and what has happened to his family. And he's just been a fantastic advocate for this issue. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Leader Lambert, and thank you for your hard work on this. Members, you've heard the description. Any discussion on House Bill 606? Seeing none, as the sponsor has already alluded to, there is a cost associated with it, so we will have to place it behind the budget. However, since it has been calendared 3 times, we will need to place it on a special calendar to be published with our final calendar pursuant to House rules. So without objection, House Bill 606 will go on the special calendar to be published with the final calendar. Without objection, thank you, Leader, on item number 3. Item number 4 is going to be House Bill 2096 by Leader Lamberth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my hopes are that there is an amendment filed on this, coded 016983.
Yes, sir, and it does make the bill, it looks like. We have a motion to second on the amendment. We have a motion to second. Let's go ahead and get this put on, then we'll let you describe it. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill, let me back up and make sure we get that drafting code. 16983 has now been put on to House Bill 2096. Sir, you're recognized on the bill as amended.
Thank you. So we do a really good job of this in Tennessee right now of requiring work requirements for folks that are on temporary assistance. This puts it into the code, primarily what the department is doing now, which if someone goes on temporary assistance, the goal is to get them out of the situation they're in and back up on their feet. The best way to do that if they're able-bodied is to make sure they get work training or get a job. And so this puts it into code that has to happen. There are some extenuating circumstances that happens from time to time where the commissioner can waive that requirement, and it lines out when that can happen. And then the commissioner will report back to us, how often that happened in a given year, and we would know. Now, it's very limited, but this commissioner, again, does a great job. He may not always be the commissioner. There have been many before him, probably many after. This just puts in code what is really best practices of the commission right now.
All right. Thank you, Leader Lamberth. Members, you've heard the description of House Bill 2096. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're now voting on House Bill. I'm sorry, Leader Camper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry I was late asking the question. Leader Lamberth, would this, how would this legislation affect any federal funds or regulations from the federal level with respect to the SNAP program?
Leader Lamberth.
Again, in working with the department, it should not affect that at all. We are granted specifically the ability to have work requirements in these programs. That's from, I think this program dates all the way back to the Clinton years. And in Republicans and Democrats working together, they both agreed that it was a good idea to make sure that if someone's going to be on this type of temporary assistance, but the goal is to not in any way violate any kind of federal prohibition or law here, but it is to work within what they've given us. And the fiscal note as amended is not significant, and it doesn't indicate any type of risk to federal funds. We don't want to go down that road. So again, that's why we have some flexibility there for the commissioner, and specifically it's why we're only doing what we're allowed to do under federal law. Most of these are federal programs, obviously, but they're administered by the state.
Leader Camper.
Thank you. And so, Mr. Leader, you're putting in code the current practices, or what is it that we actually put in code that may be a little different from how the program is actually being ran?
Leader Lamberth.
So again, right now, we do everything we can to require folks to work if they're going to be on these temporary benefit programs. These are not long-term. These are able-bodied Tennesseans that have fallen into a situation where they need these programs. And we have these programs there for that reason. But if all we do is just get them a check for a couple of months, then we've really failed them. If at the same time we're trying to get them both that assistance they need and get them into work training or into a job, then we've helped that person hopefully never have to come back into the roles again. So that's what the federal programs, quite frankly, I think envisioned at the beginning, and it's what we're trying to do now. This will just solidify it into the state law.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Leader.
All right, members, further discussion on House Bill 2096. Seeing none, we're now voting on House Bill 2096, moving on to full finance. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 2096 moves to full finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and to my fellow members behind me, I apologize for taking up so much time. Thank y'all.
All right, members, let's go forward to item number 8. Item number 8 on your calendar is going to be House Bill 2571 by Chairman Doggett. You have a motion and a second, sir. You are recognized on House Bill 2571 for a brief description.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Do I have to put the amendments already on?
No, you're ready to go.
We're good to go. Wonderful. Thank you. What we're doing is this is a training supplement for correctional officers in our local county jails. Currently, right now, law enforcement officers that are post-certified are able to receive an $800 a year training supplement once they complete their 40-hour in-service training. Correctional officers have not been afforded that opportunity in the past, and that's what we're seeking to do now. Once they complete a TCI-approved 40-hour in-service training, there's also some provisions in there about when they would not be eligible to receive this training supplement, but it will not count towards their annual salary. It will be treated as a bonus like it is for post-certified officers.
All right, Chairman Doggett, thank you for this description. Members, you've heard the description. Any discussion? Chairman Todd.
Just one quick question. So are these correctional officers required to have this training every year?
Chairman Doggett.
Excellent question. It's in state law that correctional officers are required to have the 40 hours of in-service training. They currently do that. However, they're not being, there's no supplement for doing that, whereas law enforcement is also required by law to have their 40 hours of in-service, but we are currently giving them their $800 training supplement.
Chairman Todd.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that explanation. And a couple of years ago, I carried the bill that got the post-certified officers an additional $200 on that.
Yes, sir.
And so I was familiar with that, but I wasn't sure this was a requirement for these other officers, so I'm glad you clarified that. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, there is a cost associated with House Bill 2571, and we will have to place it behind the budget and consider it at a later date. So without objection, House Bill 2571 will go behind the budget. Brings us to item number 9 on our calendar. Item number 9 is House Bill 2572 by Chairman Doggett. You have a motion and a second, and it looks like, sir, that you have an amendment drafting code 017106 that rewrites the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
Do we have a motion and a second on the amendment? You have a motion and a second. You are recognized. Let's go ahead and get this on, then I'll let you describe it in just a second. Members, any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we're now voting on drafting code 017106 onto House Bill 2572. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We are back on the bill as amended, and you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The original bill that we had brought forward looked at providing or establishing a mechanism for post-certified officers, police officers, sheriff's deputies, for our state troopers, agents, and so forth, to be able to accrue 1 year towards their retirement for every 5 years of service. That which I had hoped it had a minuscule fiscal note did not. However, with this new amendment that rewrites the bill does have a minuscule fiscal note. And what we're doing is establishing a task force with the Department of Treasury. I've met with the Treasurer numerous times when we worked through the previous amendments. We're wanting to find something to help with retention and with recruitment of law enforcement across this state. We're seeing our numbers go down. We sure do appreciate our men and women in uniform that serve our communities, and we want to find a way to keep them around. And so this was one incentive that we had worked towards. We're going to, with this amendment, establish a task force. The Department of Treasury is going to be a part of. We're going to study the retirement benefits for law enforcement officers and come back, Lord willing, next year with a plan to do so. It also establishes who will be on the committee and so forth and so on.
All right. Thank you very much, members. You've heard the description of House Bill 2572. Any discussion? Representative Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And there's a lot of folks in law enforcement are watching this right now. So, Chairman Doggett, thank you for bringing this. I think this is a critically important issue. We've discussed it at length in our Council on Pensions, and the conversations are heading in the right direction. I'm glad we're going to give a more in-depth study of this to see exactly where we need to go and where we can be in terms of our retirement system. So I think it's a good move to do this, and I appreciate you bringing it. Thank you, Chairman and members.
Thank you.
Chair Lady Hazelwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo those sentiments, but I also want to congratulate Chairman Doggett on going back to the dictionary and learning what the definition of minuscule might be. So thank you so much for making that effort.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Further discussion on House Bill 2572. Seeing none, I'm not sure I can say minuscule. I think I just did, but it does have that on this bill. But I know you've been working hard, and we do thank you for this piece of legislation. We will, because of the cost, we will have to place it behind the budget to consider at a later date. So without objection, House Bill 2572 goes behind the budget.
Thank you.
All right, brings us to item number 10 on our calendar. It's going to be House Bill 905, again by Chairman Doggett. Sir, you have a motion. The second, you're recognized for a brief description.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. If we can I roll this to the hill of today's calendar, please?
Without objection, you've heard the request. Seeing none, House Bill 905 is rolled to the hill.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item number 13. Item number 13 is going to be by Chair Lady Helton. Is it off notice? There it is. We have a request to take House Bill 2680 off notice. So without objection, House Bill 2680 will, give me just a second. Okay. So we have had a request to take it off notice, but it has been calendared 3 times, so we will have to place it on a special calendar to be published with our final calendar pursuant to our House rules. So without objection, House Bill 2680 will go on the special calendar to be published with the final calendar. So without objection, so moved. All right, that brings us to item number 14. Give me just a second here to get caught up. All right, we are on House Bill 1689 by Chairman Holsclaw. You have a motion and a second. You are recognized, sir, on House Bill 1869.
Have you gotten an amendment?
We've actually got two amendments.
Okay.
Let's go with the first amendment is going to be drafting code 016977 by Representative Lynn.
Correct.
Do we have a motion and a second? We have a motion and a second. Representative Lynn, you're recognized on the amendment.
Thank you very much. And this amendment would add Cedar Creek Yacht Club in Wilson County to sell alcoholic beverages for premises on for consumption.
All right. Members, you've heard the description on the amendment 016977. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're now voting on Amendment 016977 to House Bill 1689. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We're back on the bill as amended. And where we have another amendment, we have Amendment Drafting Code 016911 by Chairman Williams. We have a motion to second. We do have a motion to second. Sir, you're recognized, Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Chairman and members. This would add Grandview Experience Lodge in Van Buren County to sell alcoholic beverages on the premises. Happy to answer any questions the members might have.
All right, thank you. Members, you've heard the description of the amendment. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're now voting on Amendment 016911 to House Bill 1689. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We're back on the bill as amended. Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you. And basically, as you've already heard, members, HB 1689 is a premier resort omnibus bill that allows unique identities or locations to sell and serve alcohol.
All right.
I renew my motion.
Thank you, Chairman Holsclaw. Members, you've heard the description. Any discussion on House Bill 1689? Seeing none, we're now voting on House Bill 1689, moving on to full finance. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1689 moves to full finance.
And just for your knowledge, Doggett's suit matched his eyes.
He did have a sharp suit, which I started to compliment on. I'll say that. All right, members, that brings us to item number 15. Item number 15 is House Bill 2711 by Chairman Howell. There he is, waiting patiently. You have a motion and a second. You're recognized for a brief description on House Bill 2711. Chairman Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, I did have an amendment, a clarifying amendment.
Yes, sir, it's traveling.
It's traveling. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Our Refugee Study Committee hearings over the summer, appointed by the Speaker of both houses, brought to light some shocking lack of transparency on the part of the federal government regarding its unaccompanied alien children program. In response, Chair Lady White and I brought this legislation. It creates a new category of child care agency called the non-traditional child care agency, and I'll briefly explain what that is. The new NCCA will be specific in addressing those agencies, such as the one that was involved in the instances in Chattanooga. I know they made the news statewide. Many of you are aware of that. And this NCCA would be a on-site housing or dormitory style housing agency for children transported across state lines who are not subject to the Interstate Compact on juveniles or the Interstate Compact on the placement of children. The reason they're not subject to those compacts is because these children are under the jurisdiction of the federal government. And we found out during our hearings that the federal government is very reluctant to share any information about these children. And those who were on the committee, I think, would agree with that. As a result, the feds do not share, have not shared, and apparently do not intend to share any of the information about the status of these children within the state of Tennessee. However, federal law and state law agree that the state of Tennessee, any state for that matter, is responsible for the welfare and safety of the minor children within its borders who are unaccompanied by parents or doesn't have a legal guardian. And that's what this bill seeks to do, is to clarify how we approach the welfare and safety of these children. Just to be clear, the state of Tennessee has no standing with regard to immigration, but we do have standing with regard to the welfare and safety of these children. So this bill seeks to address that, the safety in children, and this bill was drafted with the assistance of DCS, who is deferred on the bill. And briefly, it does a few things that I'll describe and then take any questions you may have. It contains reporting requirements to ensure that DCS knows who is being brought into the state. A database will help ensure safeguards against child abuse by establishing a known record of the children they serve. It limits the number of children that can be housed in a dormitory-style situation. And when I say children, I want to make you aware that our hearings discovered that we're calling these UAC's children, they're really young adults. The average age was 12 to 17 years of age. This bill will also create a cause of action for a child against an NCCA who may have been subject to abuse at a facility, such as the one in Chattanooga, and we know the outcome of what happened there. And some of those cases are still pending. And there is an application fee for the NCCAs as well. That is a general overview of what this bill does. I believe these safeguards are reasonable. They'll help protect the children in Tennessee who find themselves in these situations in the future. And as I mentioned, DCS consulted on the bill and is deferred. With that, I'd be glad to try to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Howell. Members, you have heard the description on House Bill 2711. Any discussion? Leader Gant.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Howe, I think I understand what you just said. Can you drill down and do a small summary of, give me an example of like what happened in Chattanooga, how this affects that situation? You know, obviously these kids are, you know, probably in a very traumatic situation, and they don't know what's happening to them. And is there a connection of what the state does as far as their welfare? I mean, does this hurt or in that situation with these kids, because they didn't ask to be there in this situation, and so can you help me have a better understanding of what we're actually doing here?
Chairman Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll certainly do my best, Leader. A little background, I suppose, might help. As you saw the news reports, there were plane loads, bus loads of unaccompanied alien children being bused into Tennessee to a licensed facility in Chattanooga. They were licensed for 100 children. Again, children, these are young adults. We began to receive reports of this at the state level, people wondering, constituents wondering what was going on. Upon investigation, the speakers decided to appoint the Refugee Study Committee, which I co-chaired with Senator White. And as a result of what was going on in Chattanooga, to be clear, the DCS did license that agency under the old RCCA, Residential Child Care Agency. This creates a new non-traditional child care agency. The RCCAs are agencies that just do placement. In other words, they would be a go-through agency that has a child that needs to be put in foster care, and they would place it into a residential area with a foster care situation, something like that. The non-traditional agency that was created in this bill with the assistance of legal and DCS specifically addresses dormitory-style housing. And that agency was for 100 children. Hindsight's 2020. We agreed in negotiations with DCS and legal that 25 is plenty.
Leader Gant.
So what we're doing here does not hurt the opportunity to reconnect that child with their parents down the road. Are we helping that situation?
You recognize that?
Absolutely. This just creates a different set of oversights that DCS can find out who the children are, create some reporting to find out where they're going, where they came from, if possible. It also creates a cause of action for a child in a situation like that who may have found themselves physically or sexually abused, as happened in Chattanooga on 3 different occasions. And we just believe it's a good response to what happened.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you bringing this legislation. It was I was on this committee, and it was extremely frustrating to learn of some really bad things happening, bad things for our state, where folks were coming in without our knowledge. We got no cooperation whatsoever from the federal government. They wouldn't participate in this investigation, and it revealed some things that are very concerning to us. So I appreciate you bringing this. I know this is, kind of a first step, and maybe all we can do as a state until we have an administration change that's actually willing to enforce immigration laws and protect our borders. But I appreciate you bringing this effort, sir.
Thank you.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the information that you were referring to with respect to whether the federal government was sharing information on the children, do you see with the reporting that you're putting in place with this bill is going to jeopardize some of that? Because sometimes, some information is protected for a reason, and you can have access to it based on a need to know. And so if you're going to be putting some reporting requirements in place, who's going to be getting this information that may or may not have a need to know about these children, their status, why they're here? Maybe their family was fleeing for some reason that the federal government is trying to protect the information, so it could be classified. And I got some concerns around that, so I'm just wondering about the information that you're talking about collecting. Who's going to have access to see this information on these children? Does your bill deal with that? You kind of mentioned it from the study.
Chairman Howe.
Thank you for that question. As a condition of their license, they would have to report, as I mentioned, the reporting requirements on who is being brought into the state. This is not a report from the federal government. We obviously can't get any cooperation from them. But this would be a condition of their license. They have to agree to do the reporting. They have to agree to help us with a database to help ensure the child is safe, establishing known records of the number of children they serve, how many children they're serving, up to 25. This just provides additional safeguards for DCS to take a look at if they're abiding by the conditions of their license. This is not public information. This is the conditions of their license, and I believe it's a good safeguard.
Leader Camper.
Thank you. So it's not public information?
No.
That's kind of my concern. So they'll be doing their report. It'll be to DCS in this case, and the report is protected to some degree, and everyone won't have access to this information. I don't have a problem with DCS getting it, but I'm concerned about the public and the number of people that's going to have access to this information.
Chairman Howe.
Thank you, and I share your concern. And I might remind you that these are minor children, and that information is protected. And I might also let the committee know that the license has been revoked for that facility in Chattanooga. It is under appeal. So far, it's been denied upon appeal. They've done another appeal, so we'll have to see where that goes.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, members, further discussion. We're still on House Bill 2711. Seeing none, House Bill 2711 does have a cost associated with it, so we will have to place it behind the budget and reconsider it at a later date. So without objection, House Bill 2711 goes behind the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item number 16. Item number 16 is House Bill 2069 by Chairman Hulsey. I think Representative Williams would like to be recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Members. Had an opportunity to discuss this bill with Representative Hulsey. He's still working on some mandatory language. Asked us to roll it to the Hill.
All right, members, you've heard the request. So without objection, we're going to roll House Bill 2069 to the Hill. Without objection, so moved. All right, that brings us to item number 17. That is by Chairman Kumar. I haven't saw him come in. So without objection, we're going to roll this to the Hill. That brings us to item number 18. Item number 18 is going to be House Bill 751 by Chair Lady Moody. Second. You have a motion to second. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I'll get my glasses on and my page is ready. Sorry, I just came from another committee, so if I could have just 1 second.
You are fine.
Okay. This bill will add a specific learning disability to the individual education account program. And that program we passed, I guess now about 6 or 7 years ago. And so this is the first addition to the original list. I can read you the definition of the specific learning disability. It's defined as a disorder in one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or in using language, spoken or written, that may manifest itself in the imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, write, spell, or do mathematical calculations, including conditions such as dyslexia, perceptual disabilities, brain injury, minimal brain dysfunction, and developmental aphasia. So these are some pretty extreme conditions, and that's why we believe, I think there would be the potential for 200 and right under 300 students if all of them took advantage of it. And so Anyway, I guess I could hush and see what questions we have, and then I won't take a lot of your time.
All right, thank you, Chair Lady. Members, you've heard the description. Any discussion on House Bill 751? Chairman Hawk, did you want to be recognized on this? All right, Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Chairman. And just trying to understand exactly what the what the intent here is. So are these are children that are going to be leaving school to get assistance somewhere else? Is that what we would be doing here?
The process is for the parent to, if they, for whatever reason, and again, I want to be clear, this is not an indictment of our public schools and the job they are doing. I am in awe of what they are able to do, as they do not know what students are coming to them, and to be able to try to, get ready to try to meet those needs. And again, as we think of all the disabilities out there, my hat's off to the job that they do. This would be in the camp of what I would call parental choice, in that if they know their child best, the parent, and for whatever reason the school is not able to offer a program or for their child in the school, then the parent, what the IEA does is they apply to be in that program. It's very tightly monitored as far as the financial end. They quarterly would get a part of the money, the federal money, and they have to provide receipts, but it's up to the parent if there is a private school that wants to participate. This does not force private schools to participate. It is purely up to them. But if they want to use it to homeschool or to get those services, it is up to the parent. But it is an approved vendor list that they have to choose from, and they have to turn in their receipts of where they are using that money. And so it's not just go to Walmart and get Xboxes, as some people try to say. It is very tightly monitored.
Representative Freeman.
So I appreciate that, and I know your heart's in the right place, and I guess I'm just going to lodge a complaint. I have asked from multiple different people to understand where this money is being spent today. As you and I know, because we work together, in my first year on a bill to deal with students with dyslexia, and when we began investigating this, and I know we also went to the dyslexia center in Murfreesboro together, or within a week of each other, and upon investigation, there were no resources for these students, public or private. And I simply asked, is the problem a money problem, in that we need more money for paying for these students to get the resources, or is it a resource problem? Do we not have the programs available? And I still have not seen one list of any of the programs that any of these students are participating in. And my fear is that we are going to have parents pulling their kids out of school with no ability to return them to the school after they pull out and relinquish that ability to go back, and then they're not going to find the resources that these students have, and then we're not going to have the ability to understand where they are, what they're doing, track the efficacy of the programs, and I threw a lot out there at you, and I'm not sure I'm necessarily looking for a comment, but I would really like to know what are we doing today? How are we spending these dollars today?
Chair Lady Moody.
It is, and I'm sorry I don't have that list in front of me, and from 7 years ago, I would not want to trust my complete memory, but I know when we ran the bill, Senator Gresham ran it in the Senate. And so we did compromise, because in the beginning we just asked for, the disability, the SPED, and the ones that have IEP. And so, but as we worked through the process, there were concerns about different things. So we whittled it down. I know it was a small ask, and to this day, at the most, it's right under 300 students that we have. And I've often been asked by a couple of reporters if I'm disappointed in that number. And I said no, because we testified that we do believe most parents are going to be satisfied with where their child is. This is intended for those certain circumstances for a parent to step in and say, this is not working. My school is not able to provide me with what I think would help my child, and I would rather use this. And they do. If it doesn't, what they've done doesn't work, or it's not giving them the results they want, they can bring their child back. They can. So it doesn't bar them forever from ever coming back. And so it's, again, I think it is a smaller segment that's going to want to go through that. But it's, again, their testing is, they can either ask the school to give the TCAP test. It's not as robust as we think of our students that are there, just that are not with the IEP, but they are tested. And so.
Representative Freeman. Sorry, last one, I'm sorry. And again, if they are tested, I've asked for those test results. I just wanted to see, and I've not seen any test results, any indication of where these students are, who they are, what services they're getting, how effective they are, and I just want to make sure we're doing what is actually best. And you stated that they can return, but my understanding is they can't return until the following school year because they've already drawn down that money. So if they get out and decide that this isn't a good fit, they're out of school for a year. And I fully support exactly what you're trying to do here. I want to make sure that I've got all the information that is out there for me to make the right decision, and I've asked for it, and I just don't think that I've gotten it. So,
Chair Lady Moody.
Thank you, Chairman. So, what I am disappointed to hear that the department's not providing that, and I cannot tell you why they're not. And I will do everything in my power to make sure that we know that. Because I would never have run a bill in the beginning that would not have had accountability to the taxpayers' money. I'm up here to watch over that too, and I'm not saying you're accusing me of that at all. I'm in agreement with you that why can't our department provide that? And I have not asked for that just here in the distant past, near distant past, but that is disappointing to me. But I assure you, when we ran that bill and we made sure all these things were in this, we didn't give them one lump sum. If for whatever reason they do not finish, they are required to give that money back. They don't get to keep it and then do whatever they want to. And again, the ones that complete it, and whatever, even if it's a partial year that they used it, they have to provide receipts from the approved vendor list. So.
Representative Freeman, follow up. Representative Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chairman Moody, I really appreciate this bill. In fact, there's someone in my district who, it sounds to me, just reading it, is this would be applicable to. I have a constituent whose son he's blind in one eye, he has dyslexia in the other eye, and he has a lot of trouble understanding math. He also has a condition where he has to take human growth hormone because it's a genetic condition. So this little boy has a lot of challenges. And they've been working with the school to try to help him. But recently, his parents decided to go outside and get a tutor of their own, and they found a graduate student in West Tennessee. They're right here in Mount Juliet. They're using a graduate student in West Tennessee through Zoom, and they are getting their son help that he needs, and they're really satisfied with this tutor. It's a little expensive. It is for this family, but you know, they love their son. He's their only child, and they want to give him the best opportunity that they can. And this actually sounds like he would fall within those parameters. So I do hope it gets funded, and I do hope it passes. So thank you for bringing this.
Thank you, Representative Land. Chairlady Moody.
Thank you for that example. And also in the original bill, which is still there, that if a parent is found to have misused those funds, they are required to pay it back. They don't just get a pat on the wrist. It's a requirement that they pay that back if it's misused and off that vendor list. And anyway, thank you.
Representative Lynn, was you finished? All right, Representative Ogles.
Thank you, Chairman, to the sponsor. I love this bill. I was very dyslexic as a child. I guess still am very dyslexic. I've always had trouble reading, and my parents definitely moved me around to find the best school that was suited and that got the right conditions to help me and support my education. I cared nothing about education. I just wanted to play football. But my mom wanted me to read and do well in school, and the parents do know best for what's good for their children. So I definitely support this piece of legislation.
Thank you, Representative Ogles. Chairlady Moody.
Thank you for that. And not necessarily all these disabilities that we've mentioned, but as is the case in the disability world, the earlier the intervention, the likely there's more success. And so in your case, we know how important it is to be able to read, and we've got the big push for literacy and all, and so it is very important. And thank you for your words.
Leader Gant.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. Chairman Moody, thank you for bringing this. I know your heart's in the right place, and I think everybody on this committee agrees with where your heart is. But I do want to make a point. If I'm not mistaken, I think the governor has identified these issues in the new budget for the TISA funding formula that addresses the weights and measures of these in the local LEAs and gives them the tools to address these concerns. So I think that we're going to be able to make some headway here either way. But anyway, thank you.
Chairlady Moody.
Well, once again, I know we're looking into the crystal ball, and I have no ability to read that crystal ball, but I know that is another component of that new funding formula. But again, I think what this is just trying to address is for those parents that are seeing what they're being offered is not working, for them to be able to have an avenue to try something different. And it's just the parents that have been using it these past few years have just been so grateful to have had it and to have gotten their child that intervention that they needed. And so we just wanted to give a few more that same opportunity. And so I think they could work hand in hand. Again, the schools are doing a phenomenal job. So that's why the number's so small of the people that have participated and that we would even expect to participate should this pass. But thank you. Thank you for bringing that up.
Chairman Wendell. Pass. Representative Ogles.
Thank you, Chairman. And to those comments that were previously made, one of the problems with dyslexia is it takes an extreme amount of training, discipline from a teacher and one-on-one interaction with a student, sometimes 45 minutes a day for years to see signs of improvement. And with our new funding formula, our TISA formula, or whatever we say, we're allocating money to the districts. But I'm terrified that we don't have the staffing adequate to supply what's needed for those children. So in some capacity, if we don't offer off-site tutoring or some other mechanism where those children get one-on-one individual attention daily, or at least 2-3 times a week, we're going to allocate a lot of money and see no improvement whatsoever. But that's my soapbox, and I'll stop with that.
Thank you, Representative. Chairlady Moody.
Just, good point. Thank you.
Representative Freeman.
Sorry, I'll stop talking. But we keep talking about tutoring, and I just want to make sure that I understand the bill. This is not you can go to school for 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and then you get tutoring in the evening. It's an either or, correct?
Yes.
Further discussion. And I guess as you decide whether or not you want to discuss this any further, listening to the discussion, I think the concerns that the committee have raised, I think that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to the accountability piece. So which is why I struggle with this bill and why I'll, unfortunately, Chair Lady, I'll be voting no on it. But I know your heart's in the right place, and I know you've worked hard on this bill, and so thank you for what you do advocating. Members, further discussion? If not, we are ready to vote. We are voting on House Bill 751. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no.
No.
The ayes have it. House Bill 751 moves to full finance.
Thank you very much, Chairman and Committee.
All right. Chair Lady, before you walk off, you've got another item, and we're going to go ahead and pick it up. It's going to be item number 60.
Can I run get my other book? It's right here. I forgot of it.
Item number 60 is House Bill 2147. You have a motion to second. You are recognized, and we'll give her just a second.
All right, committee.
All right, Chair Lady. Again, members, we're on item number 60, House Bill 2147 by Chair Lady Moody. You have a motion second. You're recognized.
Thank you so much, committee. This is one you're all going to love and be able to agree on. This is in response to our human trafficking, the legislation that, again, I never want to give up an opportunity to remind you all of Representative Jim Coley and how he led the way for Tennessee all those many years ago before I even came, and on this human trafficking legislation. So what we have done here, there is a group called Shared Hope International, and they set the standard for how we rank our states in the toughness and effectiveness of our human trafficking laws. So we in Tennessee are used to being number one, and that's a good thing because that means we're really tough on this. But Shared Hope has recalculated as we've improved, and then even as we always know, evil finds another way. So they have recalculated how they rank the states. So this bill is in reaction to some of the, a lot of it's very many sections of laws we already have, but the focus is on children under the age of 18. So it's a technical bill. It's, like I said, it's just tweaking things that we already have in law, and but just to bring us up to where we can hopefully get that number one ranking back. This is an administration bill, and I have a lot of things I could read you, but I could wait and see if you've got something specific, something more you need to ask, and I'll be glad to try to answer.
All right, members, you've heard the description of House Bill 2147. Any discussion? Seeing none, House Bill 2147 does have a cost associated with it, so we will have to place it behind the budget and consider it at a later date. So without objection, House Bill 2147 will go behind the budget.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
Hold on one second. We're going to go. Members, we're going to go to item number 17. Item number 17 is going to be House Bill 2849 by Chairman Kumar. You have a motion to second. You're recognized for a brief description on House Bill 2849.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we know, the United States is the leader in medical and scientific education, and we have foreign graduates who come here for short periods of time to receive further training. This bill allows the Board of Medical Examiners to issue a temporary license for 90 days to these graduates who are verified to have received a medical degree from a recognized medical school, and their background has been checked, and they will work completely under supervision. And again, this is a 90-day limited license so they can participate in patient care.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Kumar. Members, you've heard the description of House Bill 2849. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're now voting on House Bill 2849, moving on to full finance. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 2849 moves to full finance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, we are going to skip to item number 57. We do have a guest here that has traveled, and we want to make sure that we are able to pick this one up. Members in the audience, I apologize, but we do want to accommodate a guest that has traveled. So we're going to go to item number 57. Give us just a second to get there. All right, members. Item number 57 is going to be House Bill 1218 by Chairman Williams. You have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Chairman and members. I have an amendment which rewrites the bill, drafting code 016861.
All right, you have a motion, a second. Let's go ahead and get this amendment put onto the bill since it does make it. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we're now voting on Amendment 016861 to House Bill 1218. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We're back on the bill as amended. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and members. House Bill 1218 creates a new market development insurance tax credit for businesses, CDEs, which are community development entities, which allows for investment in our rural communities across the state. It allows for currently the federal government has community investment, new market tax credits that can be utilized in our communities for funding small projects for either equipment purchases or financing development in our rural areas. This bill would allow for an insurance credit to be realized similarly to the federal entity, to the federal government. They issue billions of dollars a year in order to invest in our local communities. Currently, Tennessee does not have a local insurance tax investment credit. This would create a system by which we could do that. The members may understand or know in Appropriations Subcommittee this year, we researched about community investment tax credits and their impact on our local communities as it relates to investments across the state. This is a similar opportunity for our state to be able to pool these dollars and have them brought to our state in order to encourage investment in our rural communities. This money would have 100% of these monies would have to be invested in our rural communities. I know a little bit about this, Chairman, but as you alluded to earlier, I did have someone who's traveled a long way that would like to testify on this bill. If we could go out of session, I would appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Williams. Member, you've heard the request to go out of session. Any objection to going out of session? Seeing none, we're now out of session. If our guest would please step up to the podium, please identify yourself for the record.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Ryan Dressler. I'm with Advantage Capital. Advantage Capital is a community development entity, one that Chairman Williams mentioned. We participate in the Federal New Markets Program, and we're one of the largest participants, winning 13 of 17 rounds through that federal program, and we've invested now $860 million in small businesses across the country, supporting about 32,000 jobs with an average wage of about $50,000. The goal of the state program is to drive investment into small businesses exclusively in rural counties in Tennessee that are in these underserved and underbanked areas, and all of the businesses would be small. A couple examples. One example, a company that's received financing through this program in Tennessee already is Anderson Meats in Hartsville. It's a small custom meat packing plant and processing plant that went from nothing to now having about 10 jobs since opening. So that's an example of a type of business that couldn't get financing otherwise. Another example is a company we invested in Cynthiana, Kentucky, a town of about 6,500. They went from about 180 jobs to about 250 jobs. They manufacture waste trucks and then cement mixers, and it's a really strong and the largest private employer in that area now. And they offer a wage, $20 an hour, which is double the county wage. So the last thing here, I'll finish and then answer any questions. There's 14 states that have a state new markets program with that primary goal to attract the $5 billion a year that's authorized annually to be invested in the state of Tennessee, because it's not a pro rata program. 5 neighbors of Tennessee, you got Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, and Kentucky all have new markets programs, and then a regional competitor, Ohio, has a permanent new markets program. So I'll leave it there and then answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dressler. Members, any questions for our guests?
Let's have a comment.
Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Dressler. Thank you for coming today. I just thought if you could share with the committee what you shared with me. What makes this important to our state is by setting up this tax credit or insurance tax credit. Why is that important to Tennessee and differentiating it from the other 30 some odd states who haven't done this as it relates to businesses like yours that invest capital in states all across the United States?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the program's been around for 20 years. And over that time period, groups like Advantage apply to that federal program annually. It's a competitive process. When we apply to that program, if we are one of the few recipients that get the ability to raise a fund, we've already selected where we're going to take it. And Tennessee is, while one of the strongest business states, is ranked in the bottom 11. They're 39th of 50 in attracting investment to the state, and it's nothing else than just the habits that were formed and who won awards and where they're located. And so by putting this state program in place, like the other 14 states have seen, including one, Nebraska as an example, went from the bottom 10 in that federal program to the top 10 in attracting it. You're forcing federal groups with capital to bring it to the state with that state program, and without it, it's unlikely to change the course, and that program should be made permanent at the federal level.
Chairman Williams.
Thank you. I think it's really important. Of course, this Tennessee General Assembly has invested millions of dollars in trying to assist rural communities and helping them to grow. This is a way in which we can provide credits to incentivize businesses who acquire $5 billion from the of federal grant funding from the Fed in order to invest those dollars here. So the synergy of it is what allows rural communities to be able to grow and thrive where they might, like the 2 examples you gave previously, might not able to be get the funding for their local enterprises. And so thank you for coming today. I don't know if the other members have any questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, further discussion, any questions or comments for our guest? Seeing none, thank you for being here very much. Thank you. Without objection, we will now go back into session. And Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and members. As a member of this committee, I recognize that this does set aside monies as it relates to insurance tax credits, but I do hope that the members will consider this as they go forward. I think for our rural communities across the state, it would be not just an incentive for businesses, but it will also help facilitate growth in our rural communities, which is only good for this state as a whole. With that, Mr. Chairman, I recognize where this bill's going. Happy to support you. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. Members, any questions, any discussion on House Bill 1218 to the sponsor? Seeing none, as the sponsor has already alluded to, there is a cost associated with House Bill 1218. We will have to place it behind the budget and consider it at a later date. However, since the bill has been calendared 3 times, we will need to place it on a special calendar to be published with our final calendar pursuant to our House rules. So without objection, House Bill 1218 will go on the special calendar to be published with the final calendar. Without objection, so moved. All right, that brings us, members, we're going to skip over to item 40. Item 40 on our calendar is House Bill 2045 by Representative Grills. Sir, you have a motion. The second, you recognize for a brief description.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And committee, under present law, disabled veterans and Purple Heart recipients are eligible for one free memorial license plate. And this legislation would seek to add an additional free plate to our disabled veterans and Purple Heart recipients. In 2014, there was a little bit of a budget crunch, I believe, and they had these, and this pretty much just restores what they originally had.
All right. Thank you, Representative Grills. Members, any discussion on House Bill 2045? Seeing none, House Bill 2045 does have a cost associated with it, so we will have to place it behind the budget and consider it at a later date. So without objection, behind the budget. Brings us to item number 41 on our calendar. Item number 41 is going to be House Bill 2322 by Representative Grills. You have a motion to second. You recognize for a brief description.
Let me get the right book here. Thank you, sir. Under present law, disabled veterans and Purple Heart recipients, obviously they're free. They have the ability to get the license plates. But this bill seeks to include veterans who are unemployable due to service-related injuries. But they're not necessarily 100% disabled. They're just 100% unemployable.
All right. Thank you, Representative Grills. Members, you've heard the description of House Bill 2322. Any discussion? Seeing none, House Bill 2322 does have a cost associated with it, so we will have to place it behind the budget and consider it at a later date. So without objection, House Bill 2322 goes behind the budget. Brings us to item number 42 on our calendar. It's House Bill 2802 by Representative Grills. You have a motion to second. You're recognized for a brief description.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This is probably the bill that means the most to me this year. This recognizes that you cannot put a electronic tracking device on an individual without their consent. We have a little girl that works at Chick-fil-A back at home, and she realized that there was some electronic device trying to connect to her phone, and come to find out someone had placed a tracker on her car. As the investigation moved forward, it looked like that there were some potential sex traffickers watching her. And because of that, I started looking into it back in December, and this is where the genesis of this bill came from, and that's where we are today.
All right. Thank you, Representative Grills. Members, you've heard the description on House Bill 2802. Any discussion? Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Chairman. And this may be a really dumb question. I hope someone got that on film. But what about minors? If you have a child that you want to put a tracker in their book bag or something, does this also make that a criminal offense?
Representative Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the question. In other committees, we have established that that is not the intent of this legislation, and you have guardianship over that individual. You have the ability to know where they are, and you have permission to put that on them because you are the guardian.
Great. Representative Freeman.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
All right. Further discussion on House Bill 2802. Representative Ogles.
Thank you, Chairman. Does this pertain to, I know there's tracking apps on your phones right now, and if somebody were to leave their phone for a time or their password were to be known, somebody can enable the tracking mode of their iPhone, for instance, and sync the phones and track them. Does it cover mobile devices, phones? Or if any kind of spyware was installed or any of those apps that enable people to do that, and where you can't see it on the phone?
Representative Grills.
Specifically, I cannot answer that question. If someone goes onto another person's phone and puts that on there without their consent, I would assume that would be without their consent, so therefore it might apply, but I'm not certain. We may have to have legal. But the goal of this is strictly for items about that size right there and electronic tracking devices.
Representative Ogles.
Can we go out of session and ask legal? I mean, do we have anything on TCA right now that precludes somebody from doing that?
We can go out of session, so without objection, we'll go out of session. We'll ask Mr. Joel Hayes.
Joel Hayes, Office of Legal Services. Representative Ogles, in the legislation, what we're doing is redefining course of conduct as it regards to stalking. So what this would state is that it includes, a course of conduct includes one instance of placing an electronic tracking device without the consent of a person on the person or in or on the person's property. So that could conceivably extend to placing some type of spyware on someone's phone.
Representative Ogles.
Thank you, Chairman. To the sponsor, would you be open to an amendment if we rolled this 1 week to be sure that we firm up that anything placed on a digital device would also be covered? It would be nice if that wording was more specific.
Yeah, hold on one second. I thought you were going to direct your question to legal. We're out of session right now. So
sorry,
you have
Chairman.
a question for Mr. Hayes?
No, sir.
Okay, any questions for legal? Seeing none, without objection, we go back into session. Representative Ogles, now you're recognized.
So to the sponsor, would you be open to a motion to roll this 1 week so we could firm up some of the language pertaining to mobile devices to be sure that somebody couldn't, without your knowledge? It'd be nice if it were specifically listed in the legislation and more specific, because I think right now it's a vague at best to whether or not that would be covered.
Representative Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm open to doing anything that would make our individuals more safe. But at the same time, we worked with the DA's conference. I believe we wrote this bill 4 times before we actually filed it to make sure that we had everything covered as much as possible. And obviously, I don't know if anyone's in here that's even on the panel that could testify, but I just want to see the bill passed in some fashion and to give some of these individuals, like Shay back home, some protections.
Representative Ogles.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we could firm this up a little bit better, but that's just my opinion. I don't want to sidetrack your legislation, but if you could roll it 1 week, I think we could really tighten it up to be way more specific. Do I? Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
Representative, let's go to Chairman Williams first.
Thank you. I just, hopefully my kids aren't watching, but I have devices on my kids in order to and they are not watching. So I guess, and they don't know they're on there. You plug them into the computer deal. If my kid, could my kids charge me with a crime if your bill passes?
Representative Grills.
If you have guardianship of your kids, I do not think so, and that's what we wanted to make sure. When Zoe and I went back and forth over this and over this again, we wanted to make sure that parents were still in charge of the children in their home, and if they had guardianship over those children.
Well,
Representative Williams.
listen, I think your bill's stellar. I really want to do that, but I don't want it to be an unintended consequence.
understand.
Obviously, I think we absolutely need to do anything we can to protect our kids here as well, which is why I have them on my kids' cars. But on the other hand is, I do think there's some benefit. I think there's a little bit of discomfort, I guess you could say. And so I'd love the opportunity, like Representative Ogles, to see if we can fix this, because it does have fiscal notes going behind the budget, so we wouldn't be able to really amend it or do anything after it's behind the budget. It's kind of in oblivion. But if we can get in the right posture, I think it'd be good. So,
Chairman Williams, let's go out of session, go back to legal for just a second. I think some of your concerns can be answered by doing that. So without objection, we're going to go back out of session. Mr. Hayes, you're recognized.
Joel Hayes, Office of Legal Services. Chairman Williams, this course of conduct is applying to the offense of stalking, and I think your concerns would be, well, addressed with the definition of stalking, which means a willful course of conduct involving repeated or continuing harassment of another individual that would cause a reasonable person to feel terrorized, frightened, intimidated, threatened, harassed, or molested, and that actually causes the victim to feel terrorized, frightened, intimidated, threatened, harassed, or molested. So it's requiring that course of conduct create that or apply to stalking in that circumstance.
Chairman Williams, you have a follow-up?
Thank you. I don't know if you, legal, Mr. Hayes, if you have teenagers, but those apply to half of the teenage population. But I will say that I appreciate the clarity. I think it is still a little vague, but I appreciate it. It sounds to me like in the instance that I gave earlier that it would not apply. Would you agree with that?
It sounds like for the reasons that you described, that would not constitute stalking.
Thank you.
All right, any follow-ups for legal? Seeing none, without objection, we'll go back into session. Representative Grills, would you like to comment?
With what Representative Ogle said earlier, I'm perfectly fine if there needs to be an amendment put to this to add clarity. Even Chairman Williams, I'm fine with doing that because we want to make sure that we pass good legislation and don't do anything that would prohibit parents from being good parents.
So it does have a fiscal note associated with it, so we would place it safely behind the budget, and you would have time to work on it for a little while. So is there further discussion on House Bill 2802? Seeing none, then it does have a cost associated with it, so we are going to place it behind the budget and consider it at a later date. So without objection, House Bill 2802 goes behind the budget.
Thank you, Steve.
Members, I was hoping we would get to, I saw very many of you all sitting in the seats there, but there's nothing we can do. We are out of time. I've tried to stretch it out as long as I could. So, members, we're going to roll all the bills that were not taken up today will be rolled till next week's calendar, and will be taken up at that time. Without objection, so moved. Any other business come before the committee? Seeing none, without objection, we stand adjourned. We didn't today.